My dear friend, life becomes lighter the moment we stop fighting our emotions and start understanding them. We often treat our emotions as unwanted guests, pushing them away, hiding them, or pretending they don't exist. But healing begins the moment we allow ourselves to feel. The more honestly you feel, the more deeply you can heal. Every emotion you experience is like a message from within. Happiness tells you what nourishes your soul. Pain reminds you where your wounds still live. Fear shows you where you need courage. And sadness reveals what you value deeply. When we silence these messengers, we lose the opportunity to grow. But when we sit with them, listen to them, and reflect on them, we open the doors to wisdom. Healing doesn't happen by running away from discomfort. And healing happens when you pause and gently ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to teach me? You may not like the answer, but it will set you free. Whether you're dealing with heartbreak, betrayal, loneliness, failure, or the heavy weight of expectations, your emotions are not your enemies. They are your guides. Instead of judging your emotions, observe them. Instead of blaming yourself for feeling too much, appreciate your depths. And instead of expecting instant healing, learn to trust the slow, patient process. Mastery over emotions doesn't come from suppressing them. It comes from creating a healthy space where you allow yourself to release them without drowning in them. Many of us have been trained to stay strong, act tough, keep silent, and pretend everything is fine. But strength is not pretending. Strength is feeling the pain and still choosing to rise. Strength is acknowledging the wound and still believing that life has better days ahead. Strength is letting emotions pass through you without letting them control you. When you feel overwhelmed, take a breath, slow down, let your heart speak. Sometimes what you need most is not advice or solutions. Sometimes you just need to sit quietly with yourself until the storm inside you settles. Healing begins when you stop forcing yourself to move on and start allowing yourself to move through. And always remember, you are not broken. You are evolving. What you call an emotional breakdown is often the beginning of an emotional breakthrough. You are becoming wiser, more compassionate, more grounded, and more aligned with your true self. Give yourself kindness. Give yourself patience. Give yourself permission to feel. Because you don't heal by running away from emotions. You heal by walking through them with courage and clarity. Emotions are not obstacles placed in your path to break you. They are divine messengers designed to guide you into a deeper understanding of yourself. Most people spend their lives running from what they feel, escaping through distractions, hiding behind busyness, numbing with temporary comforts, or pretending that the heart doesn't hurt. But the truth is simple. What you avoid doesn't disappear, it grows stronger in the shadows of your silence. Silence. The moment you stop suppressing your emotions and begin allowing them to surface, you start communicating with the deepest parts of your being. Every emotion arises for a reason, and instead of thinking, why am I feeling like this? You can gently ask, what is this trying to teach me? That single shift transforms your relationship with yourself. When you treat emotions as teachers instead of enemies, they reveal truths you may have buried for years. They uncover wounds you didn't know you were carrying. They show you which parts of you are craving healing, love, attention, patience, or boundaries. Emotions don't come to punish you, they come to protect the parts of you that have been hurt, overlooked, or unexpressed. You see, happiness is easy to embrace. It feels like comfortable and desirable, But the real growth often comes from the emotions you resist the most. Pain carries lessons about resilience. Fear points toward areas where courage is waiting to be born. Anger reveals where your boundaries have been crossed. Jealousy shows where your insecurities live. Sadness reminds you of what mattered deeply. Every emotion is like a lamp shining on a corner of your soul that needs awareness. When you refuse to look at it, you walk through life in darkness. But when you allow yourself to sit with what you feel, the lamp becomes a guiding light that leads you to clarity. Allowing yourself to feel doesn't mean drowning in emotions. It means sitting with them long enough to understand them. Imagine a friend who knocks at your door. You ignore them and they keep knocking louder. But if you open the door, listen for a moment, and understand what they're saying, they leave peacefully. Your emotions work exactly the same way. When ignored, they intensify. When acknowledged, they soften. The heart has only one request. Let me speak. And when you give it permission, it rewards you with peace. Many people confuse emotional awareness with weakness, but it is one of the strongest forms of self-mastery. It takes courage to look inside, to discomfort, to face your truth. The world often teaches you to hold everything in, to stay strong, stay silent, keep moving. But true strength lies in honesty. True strength lies in allowing yourself to feel deeply without letting the emotion take control of your life. You can observe your emotions like waves in the ocean. They rise, they fall, they crash, but none of them last forever. When you accept their presence without judging them, you remain anchored even in the middle of the storm. Emotions are powerful tools for spiritual and personal growth. They shape your decisions, your relationships, your resilience, and your perspective. When you learn to listen to them instead of suppressing them, you unlock a deeper version of yourself, a version that understands, heals, and evolves. Emotions are signals, not threats. They are mirrors reflecting your inner world. And the more courageously you look into that mirror, the more beautifully you transform. Pain, fear, and sadness are often misunderstood. People think these emotions are signs of weakness, as if feeling deeply makes you less capable or less strong. But the truth is the opposite. These emotions are indicators of your humanity, your sincerity, and your capacity to care. They reveal areas of your inner world that need your attention, not your shame. When pain arises, it is usually pointing toward an unhealed wound, a memory, disappointment, betrayal, or heartbreak that your mind tried to forget, but your heart remembers. Pain doesn't come to break you. It comes to show you where healing must begin. If you sit with your pain instead of escaping it, you'll notice it carries messages about your past, your boundaries, your unmet needs, and your longing for peace. Fear also gets a bad reputation. Many people treat fear as an enemy, yet fear is simply a protective signal. It warns you about uncertainty, risk, or the possibility of getting hurt. But beneath that warning, fear also shows you where courage is waiting to grow. Every time you feel fear, it means you're standing at the edge of something meaningful, a new step, a new challenge, a new chapter. Fear reveals where you still doubt yourself, where you feel unprepared, and where you've limited your own potential. If you learn to understand your fear rather than fight it, it becomes a compass pointing toward the very areas where you can evolve the most. Sadness too is misunderstood. It is not a flaw, but a reflection of depth. You only feel sad where you once cared, hoped, or invested your heart. Sadness reveals what mattered to you. A connection, a dream, a season of life, or a moment of meaning. It shows the presence of love, not the absence of strength. When sadness is embraced gently, it becomes a cleansing force, washing away heaviness and making space for renewal. But when sadness is rejected, suppressed, or judged, it becomes heavier, sticking to the heart like a weight that refuses to move. The real problem is not the emotions themselves, but how the world teaches you to relate to them. People say, stay strong, and they mean don't show pain. They say, you don't be afraid, and they mean ignore your fear. They say, you don't cry, and they mean hide your sadness. But emotions don't disappear just because someone tells you to. They simply get buried deeper, and buried emotions turn into anxiety, frustration, restlessness, or emotional exhaustion. When emotions are ignored, they don't vanish. They only find louder ways to return. But when you stop judging yourself for feeling deeply, something powerful happens. You begin to understand that emotions are guides. Pain guides you toward healing. Fear guides you toward growth. Sadness guides you toward gratitude and acceptance. These emotions become harmful only when neglected, but when acknowledged, they transform into strength. They help you become more aware, more grounded, and more compassionate. Not only toward yourself, but toward others who are also fighting invisible battles. It takes courage to say, I am hurting, or I am scared, or I am sad. This honesty is not weakness. It is inner strength in its purest form. When you allow yourself to feel fully, you begin the process of transforming those feelings into wisdom. And when you transform your emotions, you transform your life. That healing truly begins the moment you allow yourself to feel your emotions without placing judgment on them. Most people believe that healing starts when pain disappears, but in reality, healing begins much earlier, when you stop fighting your inner world and start listening to it. So many of us spend years telling ourselves, I shouldn't feel this way. I'm overreacting. I need to be stronger. I don't have time for emotions. Or let me just move on. And in this constant battle with our own feelings, we forget that emotions don't dissolve through denial. They dissolve through acceptance. When you finally stop arguing with what you feel, your heart finds permission to release what it has been holding. The moment you allow yourself to feel without judgment, you create a safe space within yourself. That space is the birthplace of emotional healing. It is the quiet corner of your soul where you no longer shame yourself for crying, no longer criticize yourself for hurting, and no longer silence yourself because you think your feelings are too much. Instead, you begin to treat your emotions like gentle whispers that deserve attention rather than storms that must be controlled. You stop seeing emotions as disruptions and start seeing them as guides. Your inner world becomes less of a battlefield and more of a sanctuary. Acceptance doesn't mean you enjoy the emotion. It doesn't mean you want to stay in it. It simply means you acknowledge its presence without resisting it. And that acknowledgement creates the first crack in the emotional walls you've built. Through that small opening, light begins to enter. Your heart begins to breathe. Your mind begins to soften. And slowly the emotion that once felt overwhelming begins to lose its power. Because the truth is, emotions intensify when you suppress them and soften when you feel them. Most people make the mistake of thinking emotional strength means not feeling pain. But real strength is the ability to sit with what you feel without collapsing under it. It is the willingness to say, yes, I'm hurt. Yes, I'm scared. Yes, I'm confused. And that's okay. This acceptance doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. It makes you human. And it allows your inner self to heal in ways denial never could. When you stop judging your emotions, you also stop judging yourself. You no longer see yourself as broken because you feel deeply. You no longer see vulnerability as failure. You begin to understand that every emotion, even the painful ones, is a sign of life, of depth, of sensitivity. Feeling deeply is not a flaw. It's evidence that your heart is alive and capable of love, connection, and transformation. Healing requires patience, and patience requires acceptance. Sometimes the healing you expect in days actually happens in months or even years. But the process becomes gentler when you stop fighting yourself, when you stop rushing yourself, when you stop demanding that your heart move on before it is ready. Healing is not a race. It is a relationship with yourself. A relationship built slowly, tenderly, one honest moment at a time. When you finally allow yourself to feel without judgment, you begin to trust yourself again. You begin to rebuild the emotional bridges that were once burned by shame or fear. And step by step, day by day, you move closer to peace, because healing never begins by escaping the emotion. Healing begins when you finally sit with it. Suppressing emotions may offer temporary relief, but it creates long-term damage that quietly shapes your life in ways you don't even notice until much later. Many people push their emotions down because they're scared of how intense they feel. They avoid difficult conversations, distract themselves with work, entertainment, or routine, and tell themselves that ignoring the emotion will eventually make it disappear. But emotions are not like dust you can sweep under the carpet. They are like seeds. Whatever you bury grows. When you suppress anger, it transforms into resentment. When you suppress sadness, it becomes numbness. When you suppress fear, it evolves into anxiety. And when you suppress grief, it turns into a heaviness that follows you everywhere. What we bury doesn't stay buried. It resurfaces in different ways. Through impatience, stress, insecurity, burnout, overthinking, or emotional shutdown. Suppression is not escape. It is delay. And the longer you delay emotional expression, the heavier the burden becomes. When you express what you feel gently and honestly, something powerful happens inside you. You begin to experience emotional lightness. You begin to understand parts of yourself you had forgotten. Self-expression is not weakness. It is release. It is a pressure valve for the heart. Each time you articulate a difficult emotion, whether through words, writing, tears, silence, or reflection, you give your heart permission to breathe again. You create space for clarity to emerge, for healing to unfold, and for peace to settle in. Expression is not about pouring your emotions onto others. It is about acknowledging what's happening inside you, giving yourself the honesty you deserve, and respecting your emotional truth. But society often teaches the opposite. You're told to stay strong, and that usually means to stay silent. You're told to move on, which becomes ignore what you feel. You're encouraged to be positive, which sometimes translates to don't show your pain. And in this constant pressure to appear okay, you learn to hide not only your emotions but parts of yourself. You begin performing instead of living. You become emotionally armored instead of emotionally aware. And that armor may protect you in the short term, but it eventually becomes a prison that you carry everywhere. Suppression also disconnects you from your inner wisdom. Emotions are signals. They tell you when a boundary has been crossed, when something is not right for you, when a relationship is harming you, when you need rest, when you need comfort, and when you're carrying too much. But when you suppress what you feel, you silence the very signals meant to guide your life. You lose intuition, you lose connection, you lose emotional clarity. Expression restores that clarity because it allows you to hear yourself again. When you start expressing your emotions, even in small ways, you begin to unlock deep emotional growth. You gain awareness of your patterns, your triggers, your needs, and your values. You become more compassionate toward yourself and more understanding toward others. You stop reacting unconsciously and start responding thoughtfully. Emotional expression doesn't create chaos, it prevents it. It keeps you balanced, it keeps you honest, it keeps you human. In the end, suppressed emotions are like closed doors in the heart. Expression is the key that opens those doors, allowing light, understanding, and healing to enter. When you stop burying your emotions and start honoring them, you reclaim your emotional freedom and begin to grow in ways you never imagined. True strength is not found in pretending everything is fine. It is found in the quiet courage to acknowledge what is happening inside you while still choosing to move forward. Many people confuse emotional honesty with weakness, believing that showing pain means losing power. But hiding pain doesn't make you stronger. It only pushes your emotional wounds deeper where they grow silently. Real strength is gentle, not loud. It is the resilience to sit with your discomfort and say, yes, this hurts, but I am still here. Strength is not the absence of pain. Strength is the ability to walk through pain without letting it steal your hope. When you acknowledge your struggles honestly, you open the door for healing, understanding, and transformation. Pretending to be okay may convince the world, but it never convinces your own heart. The heart knows when something is heavy, it knows when something is broken, it knows when something needs attention. And while you can hide your feelings from others, you cannot hide them from yourself. This is why pretending drains you. It forces you to carry two burdens, the actual emotion and the effort to hide it. True strength removes that second burden. It frees you from the performance of being strong and allows you to actually become strong from within. When you admit that you are tired, you create room for rest. When you admit you are hurting, you create room for healing. When you admit you are scared, you create room for courage to grow. Every emotion you acknowledge becomes lighter. Every emotion you suppress becomes heavier. Strength is choosing honesty over denial, presence over avoidance, and truth over appearance. Acknowledging your emotions doesn't mean drowning in them. It means recognizing them, honoring them, and then guiding them with wisdom. People who acknowledge their struggles don't collapse, evolve. They learn what their hearts need. They learn how to set boundaries. They learn how to ask for help when necessary. They learn how to protect their peace. People who pretend everything is okay never learn these things because they convince themselves there is nothing to learn. But those who face their truth develop emotional maturity, clarity, and resilience. Strength also lies in vulnerability. The courage to express your real feeling instead of hiding behind masks. Vulnerability is not about crying in front of the world. It is about being honest with yourself. It is a bravery to feel deeply and still remain open. Closed hearts may feel protected, but they never heal. Open hearts may feel fragile, but they heal faster and grow stronger with time. And the most powerful form of strength is this: allowing yourself to break without believing you are broken. You can cry and still be strong. You can feel lost and still be capable. You can admit your weaknesses and still be worthy. In fact, the strongest people are often those who have been through the deepest pain but have chosen not to let that pain define them. Real strength is soft, it is quiet. It is sincere. It is not about proving anything to the world. It is about being honest with yourself. When you embrace your emotions instead of hiding them, you become stronger than you ever imagined. Not because life becomes easier, but because it becomes easier, but because you become wiser, calmer, and more grounded. Strength is not pretending. Strength is feeling fully and rising gently anyway. Every emotion carries its own wisdom. And when you learn to listen, life begins to make sense in ways it never did before. Happiness teaches you gratitude, but sadness teaches you appreciation. Fear teaches you courage, but disappointment teaches you patience. Every emotional experience becomes a teacher, shaping your inner world in ways no book, no lecture, and no advice ever could. The most important learning happens not in moments of comfort, but in moments of discomfort. Emotions reveal truths that your mind often tries to escape. When you feel nervous, you discover what matters to you. When you feel jealous, you uncover your insecurities. When you feel anger, you identify where your boundaries were crossed. When you feel lonely, you realize how deeply your heart desires connection and authenticity. Emotions are like mirrors reflecting back the parts of you that need attention, understanding, and healing. They are not random reactions. They are emotional signals guiding you toward your own growth. But most people miss these lessons because they focus only on escaping the emotion instead of understanding it. When you rush through sadness, you miss the message about what you valued. When you avoid fear, you miss the message about your inner strength waiting to rise. When you suppress anger, you miss the message about where you need clearer boundaries. The emotional growth you seek is hidden inside the very discomfort you avoid. Emotions are invitations to look inward, not obstacles to run from. The moment you shift from reacting to reflecting, the wisdom behind each emotion begins to reveal itself. It takes maturity to step back and ask, what is this emotion trying to teach me? Me? That simple question can change your entire life. When you start observing your emotions with curiosity rather than judgment, you begin to understand yourself deeply. You realize why certain words hurt you so much. You understand why certain situations trigger you. You see why some people bring you peace, while others disturb your inner balance. You stop blaming the world and start understanding your inner patterns. This kind of emotional awareness becomes your compass, guiding you through challenges with calmness and clarity. When you allow emotions to teach you rather than control you, you become wiser. You no longer overreact impulsively. You no longer get lost in your feelings. You no longer allow temporary emotions to create permanent damage. Instead, you respond thoughtfully, gently, and with understanding. This emotional intelligence becomes one of your greatest strengths. It helps you build healthier relationships because you understand both yourself and others better. It helps you set boundaries because you know what your heart truly needs. It helps you manage stress because you understand how to soothe your inner storms. Every emotion shapes your life. Joy teaches you to cherish the present moment. Regret teaches you the importance of choices. Guilt teaches you responsibility. Love teaches you vulnerability. Heartbreak teaches you resilience. Even silence teaches you inner peace. The more you embrace these teachings, the more emotionally evolved you become. When you learn to see emotions not as disturbances but as guides, you stop fearing them. You allow yourself to feel fully, understand deeply, and grow consistently. Emotions become like a gentle river flowing through you, carrying wisdom with every wave. The more open you are to learning from them, the more aligned, peaceful, and grounded your life becomes. There comes a moment in every person's life when the noise of the world becomes so loud that it drowns out our inner clarity, our spiritual grounding, and our sense of direction. Key point 7 reminds us that healing, transformation, and true emotional strength don't come from running away from the storm, but from learning how to stand still within it. Stillness is not weakness, it is a powerful spiritual practice. When you refuse to react immediately, when you allow silence to settle over your thoughts, and when you stop letting fear dictate your decisions, you give yourself a chance to hear the truth that lies beneath the chaos. Many of us move so fast, think so loud, and stress so deeply that we don't realize how disconnected we become from what truly matters. Stillness allows us to return home to ourselves, to breathe, and to remember who we are beyond the pressures placed on us. In this state of intentional quiet, something remarkable happens. The problems that once felt overwhelming begin to shrink. The solutions that seemed impossible start appearing in small hints, gentle nudges, and sudden clarity. You start seeing what is real and what is exaggerated. You recognize which battles are worth fighting and which are draining your energy for no reason. Most importantly, stillness reconnects you with a deeper strength, one that does not depend on circumstances but emerges from within. When you slow down long enough to feel your emotions instead of suppressing them, to listen instead of defending, and to reflect instead of reacting, you gain mastery over your inner world. This is how confidence is rebuilt, how peace is restored, and how direction becomes clear again. There's another profound truth hidden in this key point. Stillness is where God meets you. It is in the quiet moments when your heart is tired, your voice is shaking, and your spirit is exhausted that divine reassurance becomes loudest. Many breakthroughs don't come through shouting, striving, pushing, or burning yourself out. They come through surrender, the kind of surrender that says, I trust what is meant for me will not miss me. When you silence your fears, you make room for faith. When you silence your anger, you make room for wisdom. When you silence your anxiety, you make room for solutions you couldn't see before. This isn't about inactivity, it's about intentional inner alignment. It's about creating mental and emotional space so that strength, clarity, and spiritual insight can flow back into you. Stillness also teaches you emotional discipline. Instead of being controlled by impulses, you learn how to respond thoughtfully. Instead of living in constant survival mode, you learn how to breathe through stress without falling apart. Instead of letting your past define you, you learn how to separate old wounds from new opportunities. This kind of discipline becomes a superpower. It protects you from unnecessary conflicts, helps you avoid decisions you'll regret later, and keeps your energy aligned with what truly matters. You begin to recognize that not every thought deserves attention, not every emotion deserves action, and not every situation deserves a reaction. What makes this key point so transformative is that it shifts you from being reactive to being intentional. Most people live their lives like a candle in the wind, easily shaken, quickly discouraged, constantly overwhelmed. But stillness roots you. It teaches you that being calm is not about having an easy life. It's about having an anchored spirit. It reminds you that healing requires space, transformation requires awareness, and clarity requires silence. Stillness is where you regain control of your narrative, rebuild your strength, and reconnect with the deeper wisdom that has always been guiding you. Every person experiences moments when emotions feel overwhelming, like a storm inside that refuses to calm. Key point 8 reminds us of the transformative power of mindful awareness, the practice of observing your emotions without letting them control you. Many people live their lives reacting to emotions as if they are enemies, constantly trying to suppress anger, push away sadness, ignore fear, or distract themselves from anxiety. But this constant struggle only strengthens the grip of those emotions. The truth is that emotions are not meant to dominate you, they are meant to inform you. Mindful awareness allows you to step back and watch them without judgment, creating a space where you are the observer, not the victim. By observing rather than reacting, you regain control over your inner world and begin to understand the patterns and triggers that shape your emotional life. Observing your emotions is like watching waves rise and fall in the ocean. The waves are powerful, they may feel threatening, and yet they are temporary. You don't need to fight the water or try to stop it from coming to shore. You simply witness it. Similarly, emotions will come, peak, and fade. When you resist them, they stay longer and cause turbulence. But when you allow yourself to watch them with calm awareness, you realize they are passing experiences, not permanent states. This realization alone brings immense relief because it shifts your perspective. You are not your emotions, you are the conscious presence observing them. You are the sky and emotions are merely clouds drifting across it. The sky remains vast, steady, and untouchable no matter what clouds pass over. Mindful observation also helps you understand the lessons hidden within your emotions. Fear points to areas where courage is needed. Sadness reveals attachments that may be unhealthy or situations that require acceptance. Anger signals boundaries that have been crossed or values that are being compromised. Happiness shows you what nourishes your soul and brings alignment. By simply watching and reflecting on your feelings, you become fluent in the language of your inner world. Instead of reacting impulsively, you begin responding thoughtfully. Instead of being swept away, you remain anchored. Instead of losing yourself, you find yourself. Furthermore, mindful awareness cultivates patience and compassion toward yourself. Most people criticize themselves for feeling too much or too little, but awareness teaches you that emotions are neither right nor wrong. They are natural responses to life circumstances. When you observe without judgment, you allow yourself to process your emotions at your own pace. You stop forcing instant solutions or pretending everything is fine. Instead, you honor your emotional reality And in doing so, you honor yourself. Compassion grows because you learn to treat your inner self with the same gentleness you would offer a friend who is hurting. This practice also reduces suffering. When you are trapped in reactive cycles, emotions seem endless, and the mind amplifies them with stories, fears, and judgments. Mindful observation breaks this cycle. It creates a moment of pause between the stimulus and your response. That pause allows clarity, wisdom, and calmness to emerge. Over time, the practice strengthens your emotional resilience, giving you the capacity to navigate life's challenges with grace and balance. You begin to realize that no matter what happens outside, you can maintain inner equilibrium. In essence, mindful awareness transforms the relationship you have with yourself. It empowers you to face emotional storms without being swept away, to understand your inner signals instead of ignoring them, and to respond to life instead of reacting blindly. It is a quiet strength that builds emotional intelligence, self-control, and lasting peace. By observing your emotions without judgment, you are not suppressing, escaping, or controlling them. You are mastering them. You are learning the greatest truth. Emotions may visit, but they do not define you. Being vulnerable with yourself is one of the most courageous acts a human being can undertake. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as weakness, as if exposing your true feelings will make you fragile or incapable. But in truth, vulnerability is the gateway to emotional freedom and personal growth. Most people spend their lives building walls to protect themselves from pain, rejection, and disappointment. These walls may make you feel safe for a time, but they also block joy, connection, and authentic self-expression. Vulnerability tears down those walls, not by force, but by gentle honesty. It allows you to acknowledge what you feel, why you feel it, and what you need. When you are willing to face your heart without pretense, you are giving yourself the chance to heal and grow in ways that are impossible when hiding behind masks. Vulnerability begins with the simplest question: what am I feeling? Many of us avoid this question because the answers may be uncomfortable. We may discover sadness that we have ignored, fear that we have suppressed, or anger that we have denied. But the moment you are willing to sit with these emotions and explore them without judgment, a remarkable transformation begins. You begin to see that feelings are not enemies, but guides pointing toward what your heart needs. You understand where healing is required, where boundaries need to be set, and where forgiveness or acceptance can release the weight you have been carrying. Vulnerability is the act of allowing yourself to feel fully, to embrace your inner reality, and to give your soul the honesty it has been craving. The beauty of vulnerability is that it also fosters self-compassion. When you allow yourself to admit your weaknesses, fears, and failures, you are no longer forced to perform, pretend, or compare yourself to others. You learn to speak to yourself with kindness, to honor your own struggles, and to give yourself permission to grow at your own pace. Instead of criticizing yourself for feeling deeply, you learn to see your emotions as natural, valid, and necessary. You begin to treat yourself with the same care and gentleness that you would offer to a dear friend who is hurting. Vulnerability is also the foundation for authentic relationships. When you are honest with yourself, you become capable of being honest with others. You no longer hide your true thoughts, your fears, or your dreams behind facades. You attract people who respect and value the real you, rather than the version you thought you had to perform. You also gain empathy and understanding for the struggles of others, because you have faced your own internal battles. Emotional openness creates connection, and connection creates healing. However, vulnerability does not mean losing control over your life or emotions. It means observing and expressing what you feel in a way that honors your heart and preserves your inner peace. It is not chaos. It is clarity. It is not weakness. It is power. Every time you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you reclaim a piece of your emotional freedom. You release what no longer serves you, embrace the lessons embedded in your emotions, and strengthen your ability to face life with courage and authenticity. Ultimately, being vulnerable with yourself is a declaration of self-trust. It is a promise that you will face your inner reality, honor your emotions, and allow your heart to guide you. It is the understanding that you do not need to hide, that you do not need to be perfect, and that the path to true strength is true honesty, not avoidance. When you are vulnerable, you give yourself permission to heal, to evolve, and to experience life with all the depth. color, and richness that your heart is capable of holding. One of the most powerful truths you can embrace is that healing and winning your inner battles require consistency, not intensity. People often look for one big moment, one massive change, one emotional breakthrough that will suddenly fix everything. But life does not transform through dramatic events alone. It transforms through small, steady steps taken every single day. The real victory is not won in loud moments of courage, but in quiet moments of discipline. It is won when you choose peace over reacting, patience over impulsiveness, awareness over avoidance, and growth over excuses. Each small decision becomes a brick in the foundation of your emotional strength, slowly shaping you into someone who can stand firmly even in the face of storms. Consistency is the gentle force that rewires your mind, reshapes your heart, and rebuilds the life you want to live. Consistency teaches you that healing is not linear. Some days you will feel strong, other days fragile. Some days you will take steps forward, other days it may feel like you are sliding back. But as long as you continue showing up for yourself, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, you are progressing. The act of returning to your practices, your reflections, your calmness, or your values again and again is what creates lasting change. It is easy to be motivated for a day. It is powerful to be disciplined every day. The more consistent you are, the more you build emotional muscles that help you handle life with greater stability and wisdom. You learn to trust yourself because you see that you're not giving up on yourself even when things feel heavy. This steady approach also helps you understand the deeper rhythms of your emotions. When you practice consistency, you begin to notice patterns. What triggers you, what calms you, what trains you, what strengthens you. You learn which habits lift your spirit and which actions pull you down. And because you are observing yourself regularly, you become more emotionally intelligent. You stop reacting blindly and start responding mindfully. You stop being a prisoner of your impulses and become the master of your inner world. And mastery is never a result of sudden emotional highs. It is the result of steady intentional practice. Just as a river becomes powerful not through sudden floods but through continuous flow. Your emotional resilience grows through continuous effort. Consistency also builds self-respect. Every time you keep a promise you made to yourself, whether it's sitting with your emotions, practicing gratitude, avoiding negativity, taking a moment to breathe, or holding yourself accountable, you strengthen your inner integrity. You begin to see yourself as someone reliable, someone worthy, someone capable of change. That respect slowly turns into confidence. You no longer wait for others to validate your efforts or your progress because you know the work you are doing inside. The quiet victories that no one sees become the foundation of your inner power. Moreover, consistency creates emotional safety within you. When you repeatedly choose healthy responses, your mind begins to trust that you can handle whatever comes. Instead of spiraling when challenges arise, you remain grounded because you have practiced grounding yourself every day. This builds a stable inner environment where healing can flourish. A plant does not grow by being watered heavily once. It grows by being nurtured gently, regularly. Your emotions work the same way. Your life works the same way. In the end, consistency is the key that turns emotional knowledge into emotional transformation. It ensures that wisdom becomes action, that intention becomes reality, and that healing becomes permanent. You become someone who does not wait for motivation, but creates growth through commitment. Someone who does not rely on inspiration, but builds stability through discipline. With consistency, you don't just fight battles, you win them from the inside out.